You a what fan? I'm a Palace fan, mate. If I had a quid for the number of times I've had to reiterate my love for those daft Barcelona wannabes from South London to the wonderfully misguided people of Sussex, I don't think I'd be at university. So, a Crystal Palace fan living in Sussex, a strong Brighton and Man United stronghold. Why? I blame my dad for placing me on what has already been a white-knuckle rollercoaster ride of every human emotion I can think of. He grew up in Purley, near Croydon, and Palace was his local side. His father wasn't really a football bloke, more a fan of cricket, so my dad took it upon himself to choose a side to support, which he's then passed on to me, which, given the heartache supporting the boys in red and blue has given me, is probably some breach of social care regulation on his part, but I'll keep that quiet. Before I popped into their lives, Mum and Dad had just moved down to the Sussex coast. They've always liked the sea air, and I do too. Just one minor problem down here: seagulls. Both the birds annoying, squawking, crapping machines, and the nickname of Palace's arch rivals, the Tesco bag-wearing Brighton and Hove Albion, commonly known in Palace circles as the Seaweed. Palace could choose any one of the nearby London clubs to have their fiercest rivalry with: Millwall, Charlton, even QPR. But some 40 miles away down the A23 stand our truest rivals. How awkward, but that's Palace. Nothing's ever straightforward. So what's it really like to be behind enemy lines? I was never really aware of the Palace-Brighton rivalry until I was about 11. I'd just started secondary school and a bigger kid asked me who I supported. Palace, I replied. You're a twat, he retorted. Why? I asked him. Who do you support? Brighton. There was an awkward pause for a moment. Palace are scum, he said. I casually sauntered off as if nothing had happened, but my brain was in overdrive. Palace? Scum? Surely not. How could someone say that about my team? But this was big school. I was coming across bigger, opinionated people by the days, one seemingly with an anti-Palace agenda. Wearing a Palace shirt at school footy training didn't seem to endear me to some people either. After a couple of weeks, I put 2 and 2 together and eventually came up with 4. Brighton fans didn't like Palace. After this revelation, I asked my dad whether it was true that Palace and Brighton really were rivals. Oh, didn't I tell you? Brilliant. What an absolute stitch-up. Ringing child line briefly crossed my mind. But who had the much sought-after bragging rights in this rivalry? Palace and Brighton were a division, if not 2, apart. They'd not played one another in over a decade. That was until Trevor Francis led us to an, unusually for Palace, season of mid-table obscurity, and Brighton won promotion to Division 1. I was then 14, but the afternoon of October the 26th, 2002 is something I will never ever forget. My first experience of a Palace vs Brighton game at home, Fortress Selhurst Park, or Smelhurst Park, as the Seaweed fans wittily call it. Dad warned me of the stuff I might see, fighting in the streets, more obscene chanting than usual and the like. Mum didn't really want us to go. I wasn't having that. This was Palace vs Brighton. This was more than a game. Kick-off was delayed by 15 minutes because of crowd congestion outside. Such was the anticipation of the 90 minutes that lay ahead. Brighton hadn't won in 11 matches. Their fans sensed the run would come to an end against us. Palace legend Stevie Coppell was in charge of Brighton. You could really sense it was a special occasion. The atmosphere was absolutely electric. I can't accurately recall the following 90 minutes, adrenaline pulsating through my body as the game flew by. One of the things I do remember is swearing for the first time in front of my dad. "Get the effing hell in there," I shrieked, come the final whistle. I still ask myself whether the scoreline was what it was, whether it was all a dream. It wasn't. Palace had beaten Brighton 5-0, and I was there. I was there. 28th of October, the first day back at school following the Eagles' massacring of the Seagulls. It was 1 versus 100, me versus everyone. Suddenly it wasn't me getting all the crap, it was those poor little Brighton fans. To say I milked it would be an understatement. I didn't care. Emails sent to people with the match report attached, signs stuck to lockers, the works, all courtesy of that smug little tosser wearing a Palace shirt under his uniform. The flack I've received, the banter with people, the invitation of a scrap after another great Palace Brighton memory, the time we won 3-2 in the 90th minute in their own backyard. All because of where I live. Doesn't make sense? No, of course it doesn't. But football fans often let their hearts rule over their heads. I've travelled to hellholes such as Crewe, Plymouth and Wolverhampton to guarantee me getting a ticket for Brighton away. It seems daft in hindsight, but when you beat your rivals on their home turf, or anywhere for that matter, you don't give a damn about the expense incurred. The bragging rights are priceless.